Hey there, this is Anna Maria Helt, herbalist and microbiologist here with Osada Natural Health, and an opportunistic video because as I was monitoring my garden for the past couple of weeks, I noticed this volunteer showing up right under the Mormon tea. And what this is, some of you may know, is Conium maculatum, poison hemlock, one of the deadliest plants that we are aware of. In fact, this was what was used to put Socrates to death in ancient times. And so it's characterized by this heavily dissected foliage. Maculatum means spotted, so when you look at the stalks, it's a little hard to see here because it's out of focus, you'll see some purplish reddish splotches up and down the stalks. And so that I wouldn't rely on that as a determining factor in whether or not to eat a plant that looks like this, but that is characteristic. It doesn't smell very good. It's kind of a musty, unpleasant smell when you smell it. This is a biennial plant, and it's considered an invasive species in a lot of parts of North America. It's native instead to parts of Europe and Africa and Asia, but it is spreading quite a bit here in North America. And let me zoom in a little bit here. And so all parts, there's the base where you can really see the splotching. All parts of this plant are toxic. The seeds are the deadliest, but every part of the plant has toxins, and the toxins are largely in the form of alkaloids. Coniine, C-O-N-I-I-N-E, is probably the most famous, but there are other related compounds like N-methylconine and conhydrine and others that are the toxic principles of this plant. So I thought I would take a quick video of this before getting it out of my garden just to show you. And so what it does is affect nervous system function. And so, for instance, it will cause muscle paralysis, striated muscle paralysis, through its activity on the nerve-muscle junction. And it also causes a lack of sensation. And so there's a very famous account of Socrates describing his death, which may or may not be entirely accurate. Some people think that Plato may have romanticized it a little bit, but basically what it does is it kind of numbs your body from the periphery in, especially from the legs in, and ultimately causes respiratory paralysis. And not to be gruesome, but the reason why people think that the account of Socrates' death was a bit romanticized is that the accounts have him still talking calmly right up till the end. But in reality, death from this toxin would most likely cause some really painful spastic gasping for air as the lungs get paralyzed and you freak the hell out because you can't breathe. So structurally, these alkaloids are actually kind of similar to nicotine, but of course very different activity than nicotine when we look at the toxic spectrum that this plant causes. So people have died from this plant beyond the deliberate death of Socrates by this plant. It's in the carrot family, the Apiaceae, or also known as the Parsley family. And so people have mistaken this plant when they've dug up its taproot for a wild carrot or a parsnip, and have died from eating that, from eating the root. And it's, in these parts of the woods where I live, there is a plant higher up in the mountains called Osha that also has these similar fern-like leaves. And so you have to be really careful, especially with the Apiaceae family, that you know exactly what you're doing and who you're harvesting, because your life depends on it. By the way, we do have water hemlock, Cicuta douglasii, around here as well, another deadly member of this family. The Apiaceae family is actually amazing, right? It has staple foods in it like carrots and parsnip and parsley, but it also has some of the deadliest plants we know, like water hemlock and poison hemlock, and also has amazing medicine like Osha, for instance, and many others. Now, believe it or not, this did used to be used medicinally. Do not do that. If you value your life, do not stick any part of this plant in your mouth. But way back in the day, very minute quantities were used as an antispasmodic and as a sedative. Why the hell would you want to do that when there's so many other great antispasmodic and sedative plants? So do not mess with this plant. Look at it, take pictures of it, but don't stick it in your mouth. There is one reported use that dates back to medieval Europe where it was actually blended with fennel and betony, not sure specifically which betony, and given to people who were bit by mad dogs, so meaning for rabies. But again, it's not a plant to be messed with. I do find it historically interesting that people did use minute quantities of it, but I think it would be batshit crazy to attempt that yourself, so don't. So this wound up here in North America supposedly as an ornamental plant. People called it winter fern. So it was marketed as a garden plant in the 19th century. So that's when the main introduction that got it here to North America was thought to occur. And like I said, this is now a pretty common plant in almost every state in North America. And we find it here in town in Durango, where I am, in disturbed soil, especially in soil that really receives some moisture. There goes Girly barking in the background. And I've seen it next to sheds, barns, garages, etc. And even a little bit higher up as well in elevation here in the Four Corners area. So a good plant to learn, a good plant to become aware of. Here's the stalks again. This one is about to go bye-bye because I have dogs and they don't usually chew on things in the garden, but I don't even want to risk it. So thanks for tuning in, and as usual, if you have any questions, I do answer them pretty quickly.